All right. Randy's still working on his lighting change. Okay. Oh, that's much better.
Yeah, I just don't have a lot of light in my office right now, unfortunately. So the timing here, we just lost a lot of. Is that too bright?
No, it's dramatic.
Is it? All right. All right. We'll go with it, I guess.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Faitheism Project podcast. My name is Alan Katz, and I have always been grateful to Hebrew School for making me the atheist I am today.
And my name is Randy Lovejoy, and I'm still searching for a moniker as clever as Alan. So I'm going to go with I am the father of Lucas Lovejoy, whom you will meet very, very soon.
Yes, you will. Now, if I'm entirely honest, I ripped off W.C. Fields.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm going to start researching it then. I was just trying to do this like off the top of my head, but
no. You know, was it Stokowski who said the art of genius is knowing what to steal? Now, I am no genius, but I certainly know what to steal.
That's right. That's right. I hear you. That's a good idea. I'm going to dig around.
W.C. Fields had a joke about my first wife drove me to drink. It's the one thing I'm grateful to her for.
That's so bad. I don't think I'll use that one though.
No. Hey, I simply repurposed it. Hey, I am honest to a fault.
That's good. No, that's good. That's good. All right. I'm going to keep working on it. I'm going to come up with one here eventually. So
I have
maybe in this next year, maybe in this 2022, I'll come up with it.
I have faith in you.
Who knows what the year ahead will hold?
Who knows?
That was a lead in for you.
So with that in mind, we're kind of we stole from Fields. We're going to steal from Alvin Toffler. Future shock. That's what we're talking about today. We invited back Randy's son Lucas and my son Tristan for a conversation about, well, in essence, how Randy and my generation screwed up the whole freaking world for the next generation, and we're here to let them have their say. With that in mind, we're gonna let's bring in Lucas and Tristan, and actually is here. He is visiting from Santa Cruz, California, and
yay!
Wow, hey,
hello. How's it going?
Never mind.
Good. Very good. And here's Lucas, my son. He is coming in from New York City. So good to have you, Lucas.
How are you feeling, Lucas? You had a little run-in with COVID, did you not?
Yeah, pretty bad timing.
What if you don't mind us asking, what happened? You're right there in the midst of the war.
I was I'm not sure, but I think I got it when I was just eating dinner with my boy that we were like meeting up because he's the one that's actually signing a lease for the space that I'm opening the exhibit at. So we were just doing a little business meeting, and then a couple of days later he sent me a positive test, and I was like, oh wow, you finally got it? Because like I was thinking, I haven't gotten it. I'm vaccinated. Like, you never think you're gonna get it. So I was no. He was like, yeah, I finally got it. But then I ended up getting it too, and I woke up with like chest pains. Went to the doctor just for the chest pains, but I had a feeling it was COVID. And then I got a positive test. They actually put negative online first, and then I was like, wait, it says negative. Like, and she was like, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. But I screenshotted the negative one just in case I needed to get anywhere, but I didn't.
The tricks in times of COVID.
Right. Yeah. But I ended up, just being here for Christmas and everything too. So
I'm sorry to hear that. Well, but you're feeling better now, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I really only had severe symptoms for one day. And then after about 3 days, I was fine.
It's good to be vaccinated.
Yeah, It is.
I
It's
mean,
also good to
that
be
really,
young.
I mean,
Yeah,
that is the point of the vaccination. It's not going to necessarily stop you from getting it. It will just stop the thing from hurting you.
for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
So glad to be here. Glad to be feeling good. Yeah.
Uh, we're glad you're feeling better.
Thank
Uh,
you.
uh, so your Christmas otherwise was good, Randy. You know, I guess with that one bump in the Christmas road.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was interesting again, we had 10 people over from, different parts of the extended family. And it was interesting just seeing the group of people try to grapple with what's safe, what's not safe, because we had everything from ages 86 to 16. So who felt comfortable with what, who thought this should happen, or we should be tested, or we shouldn't be tested, or would it be okay to go to a Christmas Eve service or not? So there was just a lot of stuff on the lead in that made it, more COVID annoying, but it all worked out really well. We had a great time together. We totally missed Lucas, but otherwise it was real good. Yep. Yeah.
It's funny. I just saw a tweet conversation earlier today yesterday on Twitter, and it had to do with someone saying that their 17-year-old daughter was worrying that her life will really be forever touched by COVID. That there isn't necessarily clear sailing on the horizon where, and never mind the people who have long-term COVID, that this could be part of her life for the rest of her life. And she felt kind of resentful toward her parent that, she's only been in the world for a little while, and the whole rest of her life is going to be tainted by this really unpleasant thing. Now, is that necessarily our fault? That's you and me, Randy. It kind of gets to the heart of the question that we're asking. The world that in essence our generation is, I don't know if handing it to you, and I don't know if anyone wants to be handed this, but the world that you are getting as our crummy inheritance, is it the world you were expecting?
I have a couple. Okay, just a couple like short thoughts because I don't want to like go off on any tangents, and then anyone else go ahead. I think the first thing, I was looking at my Roth IRA, and sure, the market will probably crash soon, and I can't really just take money out of my Roth IRA, but I'm up 30% over multiple years. And if that continues, if I compound interest at a rate of 30%, which obviously isn't going to continue to happen, but as inflation goes up, that continues to boost equity prices up, I'm making gains that you guys never saw just by keeping money in the market. Second, for that girl, what if she moved to Florida? Like, she could pretty much live her regular life. And I'm not saying that means COVID is gone, but what I'm thinking about, the last thing is, what happened when people first discovered germs? Because we used to just smell something, oh, it smells clean, it must be clean. But then we discovered that germs existed. I would guess people became super paranoid for a little bit, and then it reverted back to the mean. I'm not sure. Maybe people just act the same. But there are people like Howard Hughes and all that just, you're all the time you're thinking about germs everywhere that could get you sick. I mean, they're all out there, and it's not just COVID. So that would be the last thought, is what if that's just what we're doing with COVID right now?
COVID is not the first pandemic that has scorched the human existence. The Spanish flu was even more deadly than this. It's pathogens love human beings. Gosh, virus. The COVID virus sees us as kind of a cheap sex hotel. Really and truly, they need us to reproduce inside of. That's really how they see us. Which is, which kind of, if you think from the virus's point of view, it needs to get inside our cells so that it can use our DNA to replicate its RNA. And so really and truly, we're just a cheap place for them to go have sex and reproduce. Literally, that is the whole point of why they do what they do, and why they evolve every time we try to figure out a way to stop them. All right. With that in mind, it kind of makes it strange that people don't want to fight back against the pathogen, as if the pathogen is benign and it falls wherever it falls. No, it doesn't. The pathogen's really aggressive. It's in its way, it's really, really smart. It doesn't care why any human says, "Oh, I'm not going to protect myself. I don't care." It doesn't care. Well, no, it says, "Hey, I like you. You're my kind of human. Doors wide open."
But I think part of it, I mean, what I was hearing with Lucas as well, part of it is that being a human, having an experience like this is part of being a human and always has been. It's not anything new. It's something that humans have had to deal with. And I think it's just that because pre-COVID, we kind of got used to, hey, we've got this handled, we've figured out a treatment for AIDS. We've figured out, we're working on malaria. And we've got some solutions for that and blah, blah, blah. And we've got our flu shots and all that. I think we just got kind of used to it. And then suddenly it's like, oh no, here's another one that's actually, something we're going to have to figure out how to deal with and be innovative about. And to me, it's just, we're still, I mean, it's serious. That's not to say it's not a problem. It's just that it's not an unusual problem historically.
No, but historically, these things have profound impacts on the course of human history.
Sure.
The bubonic plague didn't, yes, it wiped out a third to a half, sometimes 2/3 of the populations across Europe. It didn't just kill people, it destroyed the entire economic system. The entire feudal system got killed by the bubonic plague because there were so few people to do the farming that suddenly the serfs, who used to be really slaves, suddenly, because they were in short supply, and without them you couldn't, the lords could not have their fields picked, and if they couldn't get their fields picked, they couldn't pay their taxes. So in order just to survive, they suddenly had to not just, "Hey, you're my serf, you work for me." No, that became, the serf said, "Well, I could work for that guy there or that guy there. What's it worth to you?" And so suddenly,
right. Well, and I think this pandemic
the first time that labor became empowered was because of the Black Death.
Yeah, and so what you're saying is that viruses are really a good thing socially for human beings, and we should rejoice.
Well, actually, perversely, yeah.
Well, it has accelerated some changes, but I mean, I think that's the thing with you guys in your generation. I mean, if you had to rank, like, what are the three things you're most positive about, and what are the three things that you see as the biggest challenge for you and for humanity in 2022? I mean, would COVID be one of those, on that list? Where would you place it? What would be other things that you're either excited about or that you're concerned about in 2022?
Well, I just want to quickly, I want to answer that, but I just wanted to kind of draw through that bubonic plague thing that you were saying. I think the interesting thing about the bubonic plague is that similar to COVID is it's not the thing in it of itself, but more so the way that, this is some Carl Schmitt kind of, it's like an exception, and it kind of shows what everything else depends on that we take for as an assumption. So with the bubonic plague, it's, the serfs in a particular kind of hierarchical order. That's the assumption for everyday life, and then something comes in and disrupts that, and then we can see, oh yeah, that was the everyday kind of way that things were happening. Similar to COVID, it makes us operates kind of as an exception, where all of a sudden we kind of can see closer at the mechanisms of what controls things. And on that same kind of token, we kind of saw the huge amount of money that was given for the vaccines rollout. And in that way, to me, like, that was a huge, like, interesting thing, as far as kind of also what you were saying, the first thing you said, Lucas, about stonks, which just has to do with, like, the way that just, like, I kind of lost my train of thought, but just the way that, yeah, I lost my train of thought.
But it had to do with.
I feel like it was going to be a good point.
It's
If
coming.
you remember it later, bring it
I
up.
forgot what I was saying.
But it had to do with money and the way that these things impact the flow.
Oh,
of money.
yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah, there it is. Money. Yeah. So just like it's not. I don't think any longer we can say that, like, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. Like, that has been now totally disproven, and it's not been true any longer anymore in this economy. Like, wealth can be created like that, and it can be disaccumulated like that. And so I think we're coming to a point where we're going to have to ask ourselves ethically and morally if, like, we can stand to live in the world we're living in, because there's no barrier, to homelessness, or to, like, having everyone on healthcare or something. Like, these are not money problems. And if anyone says it is, it's a lie, in my opinion.
It's a great time to bring something up. It's called MMT. Are you guys familiar with modern monetary theory?
Tell us what it is.
So modern monetary theory, Tristan, sorry, were you going to say?
Oh, is that Black-Scholes?
I'm not sure. Like, Black-Scholes, from what I'm familiar with, is a formula, like, to calculate option prices, but I'm sure like there's they're saying other things as well. But essentially, we've been in a zero interest rate economy for a while now. Japan has been for even longer, since, like, I could be wrong here, but I think 90s. And their debt to GDP ratio is crazy. Like, they have, I think, trillions more, just like the US, of debt than actual GDP coming in. But somehow their inflation hasn't risen through the roof, because one would think that if they just keep printing their money and borrowing, that's what traditionally is supposed to cause inflation to go. But somehow it's not happening. And it's also not happening in the United States. Yes, inflation, we are seeing it pretty high right now, highest since the 70s, but, it hasn't gone insane. So what we're starting to think what MMT is, I'm familiar with this because a professor told me about it in a class like 2 years ago, is that the government can just keep printing money. Yeah, it's not a gold standard. It's not backed by anything. And we don't even have paper money. We just use numbers in a bank. So why don't you just keep raising up the numbers and pay for everything, which could technically mean this is kind of, there's a lot of implications to that. Like, we could just have UBI. Taxes are unnecessary to fund government things, stuff like that. But MMT is crazy. And, the base of what you're saying, Tristan, I agree. Whatever whatever we need to pay to fix some issue, theoretically, we could just do it.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I've heard of, in my graduate class I was sitting in on, I heard that a very similar thing. I just couldn't remember the part about how inflation doesn't rise when you're just printing money like that.
I mean, usually that's
I forgot about that.
Is that quantum easing? Is that what it's called?
I think so. I'm not
right. Quantitative easing. Yeah.
Quantitative easing. That's right.
Yeah.
Quantum easing.
Quantum.
That sounds sick. That's what we're on now.
Quantum mechanics. It's always where my head goes.
Yeah.
Quantitative easing. Yeah. But the threat of that is that, yes, you can, in essence, you can afford anything because you can print money, but then you end up like Zimbabwe.
Right.
But there's, I really wish I could remember the other aspect to it, because there's another aspect to it that just, like, maybe for another podcast. I just need to go through my notes or something. It's going to drive me crazy. because
Well, you know, I think in hearing you all talk about this stuff that I know nothing about, it makes me think, you know, back to one of Alan's points, which was that social change can be accelerated by things like pandemics. And, you know, I think a lot of this stuff was already in the water before we had the pandemic. And there were a lot of things that were already moving and changing in our society. But I think the pandemic's really accelerated
Indeed.
a lot of these things, even like, you know, with like hybrid work being the new normal is just a very basic thing. That, you know, there are things already kind of moving in that direction, but with the pandemic, that's massively changed. And where that's going to end up in the long run is up in the air. And it sounds like there's different things around monetary policy that we're grappling with as well. You know, what are some other things? I'd be interested, the two of you, what are some other things that you see that what changes were massively accelerated by the pandemic? You know,
so what changes were accelerated by the pandemic, and what went wrong?
Yeah, you could yeah. What do you feel like? Well, I mean, or another way you could put it, I don't know if this works, is of those things that are really rapidly changing, which of them are actually, you're kind of like, yay, I'm glad we're getting rid of X, Y, or Z. And which are the things that it's kind of like, I don't know where this one's going to go. This could be good, could be bad. I don't know. Up to you guys. You know, go with it. You know.
Well, you know, I guess we're asking kind of the same question: is what indeed the pandemic has accelerated everything that was going wrong, is thrown it right in our faces. It's like a smorgasbord of awful.
Well, I'm not quite that negative, but I'm interested to see if you guys are. I just think it's making the change that needed to happen faster. So,
indeed,
you know, and we're just in the middle of it. But I don't know. What do you guys?
Fire.
Yeah. What do you guys think? So.
Do you want to go, Lucas, or should I
jump in?
You go first. I'll go now.
I'll bold. I don't know. I I like, not to disagree with your premise, but I don't totally agree that I don't see it as like your guys' fault or anything. You know, I feel bad for us all, and not to be too pessimistic, just kind of thrown into, you know, a world and a life we didn't choose. You know, that's just human life. I don't know. You know, my brain is going one way, and I feel like I just kind of got to spit it out, or it's not gonna, or I'm not gonna. So I kind of like have this idea, and it's not my idea, but like I really like this thinker Walter Benjamin, and he kind of had this notion of like, I'm not sure if this, like, the overarching point is all his, but pretty much like the idea that like we have to like clean up, and make the world like a clean and nice place for the Messiah to come. But he won't, you know, once the Messiah is essentially a useless person, you know, and it's up to us to create a world in which the Messiah would be a useless person. And so I don't know, in that kind of same vein, I kind of like wonder like if like, and this is maybe, I don't know if this will come off as just stupid or how this will come off. But
what does that mean to you though? Why do you, what appeals to you about that?
Well, because it's in line with how I think it's assumptions about how we like live in the world, or what we assume to be like human achievement. Like we're all like, that's like, you know, very kind of like Aristotle politics, but it's just like, you know, like what is the kind of like crowning, like what are we all like headed towards? Like what are we trying to make better, or like and why, or, you know, just like
what is the point of existence?
Or just like how do we measure like if we're on the right track, or like what is the like, you know, and it, to me, like there's a lot of measurements that we go by. We can go by GDP, we can go by, but to me, like that doesn't like capture like, you know, the quality of life of much. So, you know, I like this in a sense because it's like a very not fascist, but like spiritual. I feel like if you want like, you know, the same kind of like, you know, kind of feelings you get from fascism without like being fascist, spirituality is a good way to go. Because, you know, then, but yeah, so I kind of lost the train, but, but just, yeah, if God will exist, or like, you know, I know the Messiah is not God, but just like, you know, do like that to me is a source of hope, in the sense that like thinking about what could be a better like trajectory than the one we're on.
Would you say then that you think you see, you know, just going off of what Walter Benjamin said, like the purpose of life? So you used your words to say, make the world a place where the Messiah would be useless. I get what you're saying, and I get the point of that. I think is good. I think another way that you could put that into like a Christian speech would be to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. Like, what do you think about that?
Kingdom of heaven. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, to be honest, so like that makes me think of like, and I only read like the Old Testament version, but I'm a little like, I don't know that much, but of Genesis, right? Would you say like like that kind of world that Adam and Eve inherited was in some ways like the kingdom of heaven as you describe, or is that a different thing?
I mean, it would be nice. I don't know what heaven is like, but I don't see any way that you can return to innocence once you have like left from it. You kind of have to make a conscious decision to just like choose what is good every single day. You have to choose what is good.
Agree.
So then
agree. Agree. You got to do that.
To choose what's good. Yeah, no, I like that.
That's a good point.
It's interesting. Because I wonder like, you know, I know how, you know, is this is maybe just like a semantic or pedantic, or I don't know, but just like is innocence the lost, like I know we can't go back, but is that kind of on a higher tier than heaven?
No, that's
like to be able to go back.
Is heaven on a higher?
Or no,
it's on a higher tier than heaven.
I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, is that like the kind of the ultimate?
I mean, like, I'm not really sure. Like, I think that's like a good logical question. But like when I die, I mean, I'm not gonna keep the same brain, or at least the Bible wouldn't say. Or not even the Bible, I don't know, I could be wrong. But in my conception, I don't see how I'm going to have like all the same conceptions that I had on earth, like when I'm doing whatever I'm doing after death. So I could potentially be innocent, or maybe I'm not, like, you know, who knows. But
and it's a lot, there's a lot of this one philosopher I also really like, Bataille, who like kind of has this notion of like our death is like an animal kind of becoming, or like a and in that way, like an animal becoming, that's kind of like, to me, that sounds kind of like innocence. I'm not like saying one way or the other.
It's like an animal becoming. Go a little bit deeper into that. What do they mean, and why? Why does that come to mind? When you die,
so for instance, like when we see like this is just like the classic Bataille example, is like when you see like a lion eating a gazelle, one would be like, you know, would think like, oh, like I feel bad for the gazelle or something. But it's not, it's just like water and water, you know? It doesn't, there's no like winners or losers. It's just like, but that is just a place outside, that's just back in innocent, like that's just not knowing. And to me, like that's, I guess this is kind of something we talked about last time.
Well, that's a good point. Is that not part of innocence? I mean, isn't that
it's not knowing?
When human beings look at innocence, I mean, when we look at the natural world and say, hey, that's innocent, well, that's what the natural world is filled with. You know, dogs eating dogs.
It's
lions eating gazelles.
I'm just laughing. Okay, so first, I'm not too sure. In this, like, I may be a bit out of depth. It reminds me of Nietzsche. I feel like Nietzsche would have something really good to say about this. But also, like, we were just talking about how, you know, what we were thinking about for 2022, and then like we started going right into the Faitheism, like, you know what I mean? Which is like awesome, and I like it. But yeah, I'm not sure. Like, that's a great question.
Well, and to me, at least that initial question about, you know, is it better, is innocence at a higher plane? To me, a way that helps me think about it is, you know, well, newborn baby versus a old man that's wise from experience in life.
Ooh.
Which one's a higher plane? Well, I don't know, but I'd rather be the old man with a lot of wisdom, I think, than being a newborn baby that's innocent personally.
Hey, that's a great point.
You know,
it makes me think of the ending of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And the very last shot is the Star Child.
Oh, right. Sure.
The very last spot is like, that's the whole point of the thing, is the Star Child.
Yeah. It's
no idea what that means.
So then,
So I would say at least that I think innocence was a definite loss, but that doesn't mean that there's not a lot to gain.
Is that the project? If you're in that framing, the project is then like wisdom, or we lost innocence, but we can at least gain wisdom.
Yeah,
I like to, and then that's the kind of like theological like aspects I really love, and I feel like could really like, I don't know if it's good, like, means and ends relationships are generally kind of, I don't know, not great, but like I feel like it could have a huge role in just like kind of encapsulating like what the hell we're moving towards, because that's my whole thing, is just like trajectory, and just like what's like the pinnacle of like, technology, or like health, like what, how do we like measure those things, and why do we measure those things, and like what is determined to be like the best, or like, and I feel like that's something we're really kind of don't have in our society, and why a lot of people, I think, feel kind of like really lost.
Right. And I think that makes us nervous about our technology as well, because if we're not sure what's actually good or bad or helpful or not, and yet we've got this huge amount of power, that's pretty mind-blowing too. Like, are we going to end up using it for horrible things or good things? And there's been a lot about what's the word, artificial intelligence, I guess. There's been a lot about whether that's going to mean the end of the world, or whether it's going to be a very positive thing, and kind of depends on the mood of the people you're talking to. But it's kind of like, what's going to happen with this stuff?
That's that's to add on to what you said, Lucas. That's the Nietzsche in all of this, is we don't know. We've kind of uncovered like, good is just what's useful, and we're not sure like if what's useful is what's good anymore. Like, just because it's useful to some, like to a tech executive, doesn't mean it's good for everyone. And that's kind of like the Nietzschean moment. We don't know what's, his whole thing was like beyond good and evil. So we really don't know like where is good and what's evil. It's hard to tell like where those two exactly end, especially with like complicity, and just like how to escape, or not escape complicity, but just like acknowledge complicity of things like, I think, I don't know. I think there's a whole deal, like a great deal of like, something I think about a lot is like the comfortability I may have to give up if I would want to see the world changed, and I wonder like it's a pretty selfish thing, but I wonder like if I, like that's kind of like the tough thing to kind of get my head around, is like, could I see my life like change dramatically and lose the comforts that I've come to acquire? I feel like that's what it means to like be complicit in this day and age, is to be able to ask that question, that if you were to not live the comfortable life you lived, would you be okay with that? And it's a resounding no. So I feel like
why can't we like learn? Why can't we make a life that is comfortable, that helps people? Like, why are we presupposing that that's impossible?
Is it all a zero-sum game?
Well, I would just say it's impossible because it doesn't. There's so many middlemen at this point. It's so like, either it's, if we're talking about the government, it's bureaucratic, to the point where it's just like, there's such. I think things need to be like simplified a lot. Like, it's so complex. Like, I could point to like financial stuff. It's just like, I guess it doesn't have to be so simple, but I feel like it's so complicated to the point where it's like, how do we know? Like, we can say like, Elon Musk can say like, oh yeah, I've taken nothing from like Tesla. Like I work for nothing essentially, but it doesn't mean he doesn't own Tesla stocks. Like, that's like the whole point, so it's just like, I don't know what my point is, but it's just like there's there's such a web of like of shit. I just feel like the web needs to be like kind of cleared. And something like COVID, I guess, to bring it back around, can do that. It clears the web, you know,
True.
and you kind of see like who was really like kind of enmeshed in the web without, you know, being the web itself, like, which is just like normal people, you know, because that's, yeah, I don't know. I'm talking a lot.
How do we fix it?
Oh, fuck that.
Well, I was thinking, you know, to take a stab at how we could fix it. Earlier, Tristan, you were saying like, what is good and evil? And rather than like defining it, you know, in Merriam-Webster's and then following that, I was listening to like Jordan Peterson talk to some people just like maybe 30 minutes ago or something.
Who is Jordan Peterson?
He's he's a psychologist and therapist, like
Canada, a Canadian
professor at go ahead, Dad.
Yeah, he's just a Canadian guy. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, he like writes books about how to live well, but they're not really self-help books. They're more like psychology books. But he was saying, imagine, or the person he was talking to was saying this in response to like good and evil, trying to figure out how to live a life that like brings more good about, is purposeful in some way. And he's the not Jordan Peterson, but the guy he was talking to said, I was talking to somebody who was asking me that question. And I said to him, just for 1 week, try and act like everybody that you meet is Jesus or the Messiah. So everybody you meet, you treat them as if they were the Messiah. So a couple examples that the guy gave were, he saw his mom and usually, I don't know, he like quarrels with his mom or like she does the dishes or something. And he was like, hey mom, let me do these dishes for you just tonight. It's just one thing. It takes like 5 minutes. It's hard to do up here, but it only takes like a couple minutes. And then he saw his brother at the dinner table, like when he himself was thinking about taking the last burger, and then he looked at his brother and was like, hey, why don't you take that? And it's really that simple. If we all lived and treated, you know, obviously we can't do that all the time. And this gets back to what Walter Benjamin was saying too, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna, yeah.
But if you just live in that way,
it's all do unto others. But this is all do unto others.
But there's a more of an existential urgency that I think that it captures. Like as you're saying, I was gonna literally say like that literally ties right back into Benjamin. His whole kind of notion was like we never know when the Messiah would be coming. It could be like 5 minutes from now. So you can't. You have to act exactly as Lucas was saying, like.
So you should be doing it right this second.
Now, there's no time to lose.
Right.
Like,
this is not a future obligation. This is what you should be doing.
Right now. Yeah, it has to. And that's like it breaks with it. There's a break that could happen there, a huge political break, and chasm that could open up things. And so to me, there's no other like driving force, like political, maybe economic, like maybe there could be a point made for that, but like that really captures the kind of like existential, communal need for like a kind of just a like an agreed upon kind of like, yes, like we're gonna like this is happening, like, and like and I don't know, me and my dad go back and forth about this a lot, like what's the importance of truth and fact, and to me like that's like a more important truth than like if it's really true that the Messiah is coming or not, like that's a kind of like very powerful thing, and also like it asks like what's true or what's true about truth, and I that's a question like I'm really interested in, is like what's can kind of come back to Nietzsche, like what's useful in truth, but what's like
are there things not useful in truth?
Definitely.
Well,
inconvenient truths.
Yeah.
All the time. Well, I feel like we can look at that on a very like surface level, just to begin with. If you wanted to, like finding out like you got COVID or something. That's today's inconvenient truth, or like I don't know. Like,
it is. Like that's true.
The truth can be massive.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's true. The truth might not set you free.
No. A very particular type of truth, but I don't think truth for truth's sake. It has to be truth for something's sake, the Messiah's sake or something. But that can still get a little murky still, because then I don't know.
Well,
It's just
the Messiah said he was the truth. So truth for truth's sake is the same as,
the same
in many ways, truth for the Messiah's sake, or truth for love's sake, or truth for the ultimate good's sake. You know, from like the biblical perspective, that's all synonyms.
Well, that, yeah, I could definitely see that, and just as well as just like it coincides with like the end, you know, the end point, right? Is truth, or like that's like the, you know, kind of, again, I mean, I don't want to. I'm gonna say it's Aristotle politics. It could be Plato's Republic, but yeah. So like, you know,
Well, and I think the tricky thing about calling forth or calling for truth it really needs, it's not, and I think this is what Jesus got at saying, I am the truth, that I think is so helpful, is truth isn't necessarily just a propositional truth statement or a law or a phrase, because it depends a lot on how it's embodied, its context. One example that struck me was when I went to Mozambique. You know, the early missionaries there had to deal with polygamous families, right? And their initial thought was, oh, well, you need to stick with your first wife and free the other wives to go, you know, to go be free, because you shouldn't have multiple wives. That's not fair to the wives. But then what they found was that within that society, those wives that were let go were not picked up by anybody else, and they had to go toward prostitution to make any money for themselves or their kids. So they were actually causing a much greater problem within that society, because there was no place for the women who had been let go. So they had to transition toward a relationship where, you know, men and women would have the same, you know, rights within a family. It had to transition over generations. It couldn't be implemented immediately. And to me, you know, I think there's a truth there that at least a lot of people would say is a truth about equality between men and women. But you can't just apply that truth in a given context without thinking through what's the impact of it. How's it going to embody, you know, what kind of an impact is it going to have? And to me, that's the challenge of even what you were talking about, Tristan, is if we're going to clean things up, what does that mean? What does that look like? And what are the implications of that? Because so many times human beings think they're doing the right thing, only to find out later that, oh, this had a whole bunch of unintended consequences that in some cases were worse than the problem we were trying to solve. And that's where I think, to me, you know, truth has to have a context if it's going to be applied that's at least been thought through or experimented with or something, or else we can end up making things a lot worse in the name of truth, or in the name of this is the right thing to do. And I think that's going to be a challenge for us in this next year as we continue with all of these changes going on, because some of the stuff we're not going to know what the impact it's going to be until we try it.
Indeed. And
then we're going to have to deal with the results, and we're not in control of that. I don't know, just thought, but
I totally agree. That's like, yeah, that's a huge like concern for me, is and a huge reason why I've kind of like you know, very happy to kind of keep on thinking things through and not like yeah, like say like, oh yeah, you know, that's why, you know, it's really easy, like, and most of the time, you know, in the HisCon school, like it's a lot of like critiques, you know, you don't see very often someone kind of coming forward, or this is just generally like philosophy, or, you know, like it's very like rare that we get like the person kind of putting something forward. And when someone does, like, that's when they're known about kind of like, you know, forever. Like those are like, you know, the systems, like the Hegels, the Kants, like, you know, Plato, and fucking, sorry, I shouldn't say Aristotle.
Oh, I thought he was a different philosopher. You were
just that one guy. But so Yeah, so they man, I'm just not keeping my train of thought today. I don't know. My brain is like asleep.
No worries, no worries. I know Lucas has obligations elsewhere, and I think this went someplace, as it always does, unexpected.
I feel like we're still just scratching the surface though of the four of us.
Gosh,
I think we're gonna find a groove at some point, and this is just gonna light up like crazy. I mean, we're working at it, but it's fun to see the dynamics of four of us trying to figure out how to talk together versus two. But we're doing well so far because everybody's getting to say some things, and usually when a group gets bigger, some people start to drop out of the conversation, right? But I think we're getting there. You know what I'd love to do next time as a thought? I mean, before we wrap this up, I'd love for Lucas and Tristan to like kind of decide and intro the topic next time, if you guys are up for it.
I'm all for that. Whatever you guys decide we do next time, that's what we're doing. And because really and truly, what do old farts like Randy and I know?
Well, and if you guys just want to like grill us with really hard questions, feel free. You could say, "Oh, we've got 20 questions. We are going at them with these. Let's see how they handle them." I don't know.
Put us on the head of a pin.
That's right. I mean, we're up for whatever, but I'd love to. I think that's one of the things generationally is I just love to hear what you two would like to talk about, and kind of make that the theme.
Man, I like what we've been doing already. I was just thinking, like, I have a couple friends that every time we speak, like maybe a couple people, one or two, where I actually had a conversation for like 8 hours and I forgot, and I just looked out the window and it was sunny and the night was over. Yeah. I feel like that's how it would happen, like in this conversation, we just went through an hour. Before I looked at the clock, I thought it had been maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Yeah. And I was like, yo, how is it already an hour? So
there you go.
It's pretty fun already.
Your dad and I have this problem every time we sit down.
That's right.
There you go.
Time flies and we're like, wait a minute. I have like a list of things I was going to mention.
Much surface.
I'm pretty sure I didn't get to mention any of them. I don't think any of them have come into the conversation.
I mean, we didn't even answer the first question.
What's that? You didn't.
I know.
Yeah, that's right. No, I hear.
Wait, what was the first question?
It was like, where do you think it went wrong? Was from you, and then from my dad was, looking to 2022. What are the trends that you think like are good that are fast forwarded, and then like that are bad that are fast forwarded?
But I think you did, because you pointed towards where you think the solutions will have to come from. Now, what the solutions are, that's a whole other bunch of conversations. And on that bombshell, thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Randy.
Appreciate it, guys.
It is always a pleasure. Future shock. Well, I'm future shocked. We'll let it go at that. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks.
Yep. See you then. Bye.